Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Triple P, the Pats Pro podcast. I'm your host, Pats Pro. Folks, I've got some excellent news for you. Real football is going to be played this week. The Patriots kick off their season Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time against the Raiders. Given this information, this is what we're talking about today. The good news for you listeners is that I am not alone. I've brought in some help to illuminate this opening game for us. Some say he can't crack a top 12 list of best follows for the Patriots season, according to one well-known X account. Others, however, say he's the host of the Locked On Patriots podcast, co-host of the Greg Bedard podcast with Nick Cattles, and just announced today he's the newest co-host of Locked On NFL. He's known as @Nixie Radio on the X Machine. It's Nick Cattles. Nick, thank you for joining us this evening. And are you as fired up about football being all the way back like I am?
Oh, of course I am. Of course I am. We've all been waiting for this, right? I mean, we sit through the camp, we sit through the OTAs, the mini camp, preseason, which is even more useless than it used to be. So if you can't get out to a joint practice, you don't really know a whole heck of a lot what's going to happen. You can read, you can listen, and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I cannot wait for football to start officially on Sunday.
Thank goodness. And speaking as someone who went to a training camp on the hottest day of the year with the highest humidity and forgot to bring sunscreen, I'm just glad I'm going to be able to sit on my couch and just watch the Patriots and not have to sit on those bleachers and, bake in the sun. But enough about my feelings as a fan. Nick, I'm going to ask you one question here to kind of kick it off. We've heard all about, what do the Patriots need to do this year, blah, 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 blah. I want to talk about this game. What do the Patriots need to do to win this game?
Well, I think number one, they've got to, limit Ashton Genty, because I think the Raiders are going to want to run the football a lot. Chip Kelly loves running the ball. They were absolutely unequivocally terrible at running the ball last year, the worst run team in the NFL. So I think you first have to make sure that you hold up at the line of scrimmage against the run, because I do think that's a question for the Patriots with the smaller defensive linemen. Milton Williams playing less than 50% of the snaps last year for Philly. So I think there are some questions about the run defense, and I think Vegas will test that. You also have to do the obvious things, right? You've got to make sure that Max Crosby isn't going bananas and individually killing you and changing the game, which we saw happen way too many times last year against Alex Van Pelt's offense. So you got to take care of Max Crosby. And, when you're facing this Raiders offense, aside from Genty, of course, you look at Brock Bowers. And how do you handle Brock Bowers? Who do you deploy to defend Brock Bowers? Is this going to be a committee situation? Is this going to be you're sticking a cornerback on him like Carlton Davis? Or are you thinking about maybe Craig Woodson? So those are some of the main areas that you look at: Crosby, Bowers, Genty, and of course, you got to be able to protect Drake May.
All right, so I want to kind of focus on Ginty and Bowers, because as we saw from the Patriots last year and into this year, they had trouble stopping the run. And as we saw with Hawkinson when they had the joint practices with Minnesota, they couldn't cover the tight end position at all. And even in the Giants preseason game, I think it was Greg Dulcich or whatever, who's been now cut by the Giants. He was almost unguardable in the few snaps that he played. So I think that really the tight end position is going to be something that might kill them this year, because they've gotten smaller and more athletic on the defense, especially at the linebacker and safety position. But it's really Bowers is obviously a special talent. So I don't know. I mean, do you bracket him? You have to, right? But then how do you stop Genty from absolutely going up the middle? You're relying a lot on Milton Williams and Mike Nwenu to play a big role in getting into the backfield. Am I wrong about that?
Well, not Mike Nwenu. I think you slipped up there.
Oh, God.
Milton Williams and Christian Barmore.
Christian Barmore, my God, yeah.
Look, I think Kyrie's Tonga is a very interesting player this weekend. I wonder how much the Patriots are going to play Tonga, because that's supposedly his role, right? He's supposed to be the kind of run stopping interior defensive lineman. He showed more ability to rush the passer than anybody anticipated during camp. But I wonder how the snaps are going to go. That's my first question. How much is Milton Williams going to play? How much is Christian Barmore going to play? Because he was managed big time throughout all of camp. I mean,
Hmm.
he didn't take part in both joint practices. He took part in one joint practice against Minnesota, and they really managed him off last year in the blood clot issue. So I want to know how much these guys are playing. But yeah, that's going to be a question. Can you hold up on the edges? Harold Landry last year, if you look at it, Pro Football Focus tells us that he was much better against the run than you might think he was.
Hmm.
And then Caleb Chason at least showed some fight against the run during camp. But that's going to be a question. And if you look at Bowers, what I don't want the Patriots to do is look at Bowers and say, "Oh, we're just going to double team him and take him out, and then leave Alex Austin or whoever on Jacoby Myers." Like,
Hmm.
you don't want to overreact to Bowers. You want to make sure that you have him covered and you can deal with him and limit him, but you don't want to open the door to a bunch of other things that can happen by overanalyzing it almost and paying too much attention to Bowers. And now you got other guys hurting you because I do think this Raiders offense, they've got some guys that can cause some issues. And I know Michael Mayer has been, quiet in his NFL career, but that's an example of a guy, right? I mean, that's a guy who's a second tight end. But if you're putting so much attention on the first tight end,
He's
well,
gonna
now,
pop off.
yeah, now he might pop off. So, and Genti in the passing game. So there are a lot of different things that I think the Raiders can do offensively that the Patriots have to make sure that they're just, disciplined, assignment ready, assignment sure. And, getting a little pass rush on Geno Smith would also be significant.
Yeah, getting Gino off of his timing, I think we've seen that in the past, is really important. The Patriots unfortunately couldn't do it all that much when he was in Seattle last year, and they face him in week 2. So maybe they get a little redemption there, hopefully with a better pass rush. But kind of want to stick on the defense there. Um, I'm sure you watched the Vrabel press conference today. He was really cagey about the whole Christian Gonzalez of it all. Uh, are you reading that it might be worse than we think? Is that kind of the vibe you're getting, like I am?
My gut reaction to this is that I think Vrabel's just frustrated. I think he's frustrated by how much he has to, answer the question about Gonzalez. I think he's frustrated that Gonzalez is not ready. Now, whether or not that's because in his mind's eye, Gonzalez didn't do enough or took a step back. I know he said that he's happy with Gonzalez's engagement,
Mm,
but do they think that he truly put it all in to get back? I would imagine they're okay with that. So it might just be frustration with the media of having to handle the questions, which I mean, I think the media is doing their job. You've got to ask those questions. It could be frustration about not having Gonzalez out there. It could be as simple as that, where he wants Gonzalez out there and he's not going to be out there on Sunday. It could be a case where they thought that Gonzalez was trending in the right direction and something happened and now he's taking a step back. That so I don't think that it's, the idea of, well, Gonzalez is something, there's something more severe here. Cause I think if that was the case, they would have put him on IR. I
yeah.
think it's probably a case of just the frustration boiling over and Vrabel knowing that Gonzalez is not going to play on Sunday. And so he wants to move on, but he doesn't want to say that Gonzalez is not going to play on
Yeah.
Sunday because he doesn't want to give the Raiders the leg up, which, by the way, I just think there's no leg up. I think all of us know by now he didn't practice today. So it's unfathomable to me to believe that Gonzalez will be out there on Sunday. Maybe they'll shock us, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, the guy hasn't practiced since what, July 24th or whatever it was. There's no chance if he's not practicing, that he's playing this week. So I get it. Oh, you don't want to give him a competitive edge, but I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And he was also getting hit today with question after question after question. I felt bad for him at one point. He was just like, "Guys, I'm not going to give you anything. Can we just move on to the Raiders game?" And I was like, "Oh, you poor guy." I felt bad for him. I did. All right. So that's the defense for me. I don't really see anything like too glaring that's kind of popping out. But the offensive side, we just got the injury report out in the last hour or so, and pretty much everybody's healthy, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
Ramondre, Steph Diggs, Efton Chisholm, all off the injury report. How massive is it that Drake May's going to have a full complement of wide receivers to start the year?
It's certainly better than the alternative, right? I mean, I want these guys to be healthy for sure. I just, I don't know how much each guy is going to play. It's similar to the conversation that we had about the defensive line. I know Diggs came out today and said, he wants to play every snap, and that's commendable. It's admirable, and I appreciate that. Is he going to play every snap? I find it hard to believe. I don't think he's going to be out there for, let's say, 60 snaps
Yeah,
after ACL surgery. So I don't know how much he plays. One of the biggest questions to me as we watch through the first month is I know that Pop Douglas had a fantastic, for the most part, a fantastic camp. But the question for me is McDaniels and Vrabel are going to want to run the football. And I think they're going to want to run the football early and often. And can you survive with Pop Douglas out there if you're going to run the ball? Because we know Pop, his frame, he's not the kind of guy that's going to bury people in the run game. So, you know, how much does that take away from Pop's snaps? I wonder what that's going to look like. And then you got the rest of the guys. I mean, I guess Kayshon Boutte and Matt Collins will likely split most of the snaps on the outside. Kyle Williams likely going to get in the mix a little bit to spell Steph Diggs when he needs a little bit of a breather. So it's going to be compelling to watch. Is Kyle Williams involved? At what level? How much do they believe in Pop Douglas staying out there when they try to run the football? And how much will Stephon Diggs actually play? And then we figure out how do the pieces fit. But yeah, I mean, I'd rather have all six guys out there healthy and able to play than, messing around with Diggs not ready and Kyle Williams not getting over the concussion. That would have been a much worse scenario.
gotcha. So let me ask this then. So obviously we want to see where all the receivers are going to mix in. The running back position. I know on the unofficial depth chart, we saw it's Ramondre, Antonio Gibson, Travion Henderson. That's complete bullshit, right? I mean, Travion's going to have a massive role, and I don't even think Antonio Gibson, he may not even factor into this game. Am I wrong in thinking that? What's your opinion there?
Henderson, I think he's at his best if you're gonna stick to 10 to 15 touches, and I think that's the likely plan from McDaniels. If Henderson's getting the football 15 or more times every week, he's going to be done by week 13. So I think they do have to find this delicate balance of understanding that Henderson is such a weapon, and I think, and I'm sure you think, and many others think, will make an immediate impact for this offense. But you do have to keep an eye on the touches overall for him. So, Gibson, I agree with you as far as how much he's going to get love in this offense. He might get 3 to 5 touches a week if he's fortunate, but I still think you're looking at, Ramondre for 10 to 15 touches, Henderson for 10 to 15 touches, and then Gibson gets the leftovers.
Gotcha. I want to actually go back to Kyle Williams because I forgot we have a question from both of our friend, I believe, Daniel Rodman of Scouted NFL.
Yep.
He is a fellow Kyle Williams supporter, as I am. I'm sure you're aware of that as well. Um, what do you think about his immediate role? You think he's just going to kind of be a step in, like for like a Booty or a Mac Hollins? And do you think his most recent injury kind of pushes him far down the depth chart? Because from what Dan says, he thinks he has a great opportunity to push the ball down the field against Las Vegas and Miami due to their, I'm assuming, lack of real high-end cornerback talent.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Vegas, their cornerback situation is not very good. Nate Hobbs is gone, Jacorian Bennett is gone. Both those guys were their best corners last year. Eric Stokes is, a former first round pick who never really worked out in Green Bay. He's not very good. Darian Porter struggled in the preseason, so he's having a tough time. So cornerback's not great. Safety, they lost Trevon Moehrig, who played 99.9% of the snaps in both the last 2 seasons. He was excellent against the run. You've got Chin now, who's more of an in the box, not so great coverage guy. Isaiah Polamayo is he's got some promise, but I would agree with Daniel's premise, which is you can attack this secondary. You can attack this secondary downfield. Now, as far as the Williams part of the question, I really think that concussion against Minnesota, and we all are guessing it's a concussion, but it's a pretty educated guess
That was
given his
definitely a
reaction.
concussion.
Yeah, and so you look at that, and I think that stunted his momentum. You could see him coming on. I mean, you could from OTAs all the way through that Minnesota preseason game. I thought Washington, that preseason game, I thought he was tremendous, even though he didn't have a single catch.
Yeah.
And then you get to Minnesota, and now he's starting to make catches and be a part of this offense. And if you noticed, the Patriots had him out there with Drake May, a decent amount, given that he really didn't get a ton of reps with May and he wasn't really out there with May against Washington. So that to me was the coaching staff giving Kyle Williams an opportunity to make some noise and maybe step up on the depth chart. And then he gets hurt because of the Dobbs hospital ball. And I think that stunts his momentum. So, how much can we anticipate him playing on Sunday? It's tough to tell because the last time we saw him, he was hurt. And, we don't know what's happened over the last week and a half at practice. We don't know how involved he is. I think he'll get some snaps. I think he will be active, but I don't know if it's going to be 10 snaps or 20 snaps. I would not expect him to get a ton of run on Sunday.
Well, let's hope that he can at least flash because, my God, I am on the Kyle Williams train and I am not getting off anytime soon. Um, so in order for Kyle Williams to get the ball, you have to protect Drake May. I'm assuming that you are extremely concerned, like me, about the center position and the left guard position. We'll get to that. How do you think Will Campbell fares in this game? I'm cautiously optimistic.
I think he'll be okay. Now, it's all tied into Morgan Moses because Max Crosby is going to have that assignment one-on-one against Moses. And if McDaniels says to himself, there's no way on God's green earth that we can survive one-on-one Moses versus Crosby, then you have to help Morgan Moses out. And if you help Morgan Moses out, that means at least a decent amount of the time, you're likely going to leave Campbell on an island. And so now you look at Malcolm Kuntz, who's returning from ACL surgery. He got hurt in August, so it's been more than a full year since that injury. So he should be ready to go. He was pretty good in 2023. So you got to deal with Kuntz, and the other guy is Tyree Wilson. He had 37 pressures last year, which was the second most on the team, 10% win rate in his pass rush. So he had a decent step forward last year. I think Will Campbell will be okay. I think at times you'll see, Kuntz and Wilson, and we're going to see this. He's going to get beat a couple times a week, and whether or not him getting beat a couple of times results in sacks or pressures, I don't know. But I just kind of go into Sunday, especially through this first month and a half, expecting Campbell to get beat a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that's fair, especially for a rookie. Speaking of another rookie, Jared Wilson at left guard. I'm so I guess angry is the right word that of all the guys all the bodies that they had for the guard position, they're having to rely on a rookie who's the best of the bunch, and realistically, left guard isn't even the position he really should be playing. It should be center. Why? What do you do there? Like, let's say that Garrett Bradbury is so bad that you have to have Jared Wilson start at center. Is it just Ben Brown? Does Ben Brown go at center? What's your like ideal line for these guys at this point? Is it just what they have now, or do you see another vision?
I look back and I've asked this question a few times of whether or not the Patriots, regret rolling with Wilson at left guard and instead of just sticking at center with him and standing by him at center. But if Wilson struggles at left guard, it's going to be a fascinating situation that unfolds because you would like to say, okay, if he doesn't do well enough, then you can slide a guard over and maybe you put him at center to compete against Bradbury, but it doesn't feel like the coaching staff is dying to move on from Bradbury, at least not yet. So I don't know if he's a man without a position if he doesn't work out at left guard. Now, as far as what they can do there, I mean, I guess you can look at Brendan Hymus and say maybe he's a guy. I mean, he at least has NFL experience. He's played in 45 games and started 3, but he's been mostly a center. So he's played, I think, like a total of like 20 snaps at guard. So are you more comfortable with him? This could be a pretty big spot for Caden Wallace. I mean, right now the depth chart tells us Caden Wallace is the backup option at left guard. And Ben Brown, there's still question from people that I've, read and people I've talked to like Greg Bedard, and there's still a little bit of a question if Ben Brown could actually be a guard at the NFL level. And so right now, I guess you'd say keep your fingers crossed that Wilson works. If not, keep your fingers crossed that Caden Wallace shows you a little bit of potential and can do enough to make you not scream at the top of your lungs on Sundays.
Yeah, my wife is honestly a little bit uh sad that football season is coming back because I do have a propensity to scream at the top of my lungs, especially when a guard or a center is getting beaten, backed in there and a
Yeah,
quarterback's
I
being
mean,
hit.
look, Bradbury.
I'm so disappointed with him. I got to be honest.
I had concerns about him from day one because of Minnesota, his pass protection, and if you look at his camp, he's been really up and down. Some would say mostly down. It doesn't look like his pass protection has gotten much better. And Sunday's going to be a challenge. Old friend Adam Butler, he's done some things out there in Vegas. Last season, he was 16th in pass rush win rate for interior defensive linemen. So Adam Butler is a pretty good pass rusher from the inside. And that might give Bradbury some headaches. So now you look at Crosby, what do you do with Moses? And then you look at Adam Butler in the middle, maybe getting the best of Bradbury a few times. And then you asked about Will Campbell, and you got Will Campbell and Jared Wilson, 2 rookies starting on the left side, blind side of Drake May. How do they handle the speed rush and other stuff that Patrick Graham's gonna send at them? So, I mean, Patrick Graham last year, he blitzed the 11th most in the NFL. He blitzed more than 26% of the time. So I would anticipate the Raiders going after Drake May and trying to test this young offensive line on the left with some blitz and some twists and some stunts, playing some games, and we'll see how they deal with it.
See, Nick, this is why we bring you on the pod because you're able to just summarize everything that's going to happen and make it digestible, and I really appreciate that. Um, Nick, I know we want to keep it tight here. We have a couple of viewer questions. Um, this one comes from Quarter Zip Sports. In what situation do the Pats win, but you are concerned for week 2 and beyond? I'll answer first because I'm not a gracious host. Uh, Christian Gonzalez is not playing again. I think that's a really bad situation if you're rolling into week 2 with Miami and Christian Gonzalez is not on the field. What do you think?
I go back to Campbell. I look at Campbell and Wilson, and there's a scenario that the Patriots can win this game, and they do enough because the Raiders' defense isn't great, and they get enough out of 3 or 4 drives and finish those drives off, and they put up 20 some odd points, but there's some leakage and there's some issues from Will Campbell and Wilson, and you go into week 2 when you think about that Miami pass rush, because if there's one thing, I'm not big on Miami this year, and I've been saying it for months, that I'm out on Miami, and now that's now the kind of universal thought is that Miami's not going to do great this season. McDaniel is obviously on the hot seat, but the one thing that Miami has is that defensive line. The one thing that Miami can do is get after you, and they've got Sealer, they've got Chop Robinson, they've got Chubb, they've got Phillips. That defensive line can absolutely eat if you let them eat. So if we leave Sunday's game, even if the Patriots win, if we leave Sunday's game saying, "Hey, they won, but dot dot dot," I don't know about that left side of the line. I mean, you go into Miami with that heat, with that humidity, with those pass rushers, and all of a sudden you might be looking at a long day for Drake May.
It's honestly something that people don't think about is that pass rush, that defensive front. You're right. I wasn't even thinking about it until you just said it. That's scary, honestly. That's like seriously concerning if we're seeing a lot of leakage in week one with the Raiders. All right, this next question here comes from friend of the pod, Michael Rodnick. Mike, I've pretty much asked both questions 1 and 3 here, so I'm going to stick with question 2. For both of you, you and I, Nick, what is our hottest take slash bold prediction, excuse me, for week one with the Raiders? What's a bold prediction slash hot take that you have for this upcoming game?
Bold prediction. I'm going to go with Ramondre Stevenson has 100 yards. Just because nobody's talking about him, and he's been a little banged up from time to time. The fumble thing popped up again. And I think everybody is so excited about Travion Henderson, and we should be, that we might be overlooking Ramondre a little bit if he could take care of the football. So again, remember, this is a bold prediction. But how about Dre with 100 rushing yards on Sunday?
And not a single fumble in sight.
That's right, not a single fumble.
So mine, that's a great one, honestly. Mine is going to be that Steph Diggs has 2 touchdowns and like 5 catches and 80 yards.
Nice.
I think that's as bold as I'm willing to be, and that's really bold, admittedly. But I think that's kind of where I would like to see the, classic alpha wide receiver really, take over the game. I want to get him involved. I want him to be dominant because, God, it's been such a long time since we've had that here. All right. Well, Nick, you've been very gracious with your time. Folks, before we end the podcast, I'm going to ask that you like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening. In Nick's words, it helps us beat the crap out of the algorithm. But Nick, I just want to thank you for stopping by and providing your wonderful insight. You're always welcome here. And please tell the fine people where they can find you if I've missed it.
Yeah, I mean, Locked On NFL, the new gig on Friday mornings. It's Friday mornings, Locked On NFL. So not every day all week, but on Friday mornings, I'll be co-hosting with Tyler Rowland on Locked On NFL. That's Amazon Fire TV. You can check it out. You can also get it in a bunch of different platforms. It's easy to find. Also, Locked On Patriots is my main gig now, Monday through Friday. So that's cranking, and I believe I'll be going live now on Sundays after games with Locked On.
Awesome.
I'm working towards that. So you can find me there, Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles. And if you like the other Boston sports, I also have a Patreon thing you can check out, patreon.com/Nick Cattles, Cattles.
Awesome. Well, Nick, again, it's been a pleasure. Maybe one day we can team up with Locked On, you and I do a show, but have a great night. Folks, thank you for listening. We'll see you later.